how do you want to proceed on this?
Do I have any other volunteers besides myself who would like to reach out to affordable housing developers? We can do it right now.
I could do it.
Okay.
Beth, don't you have a kind of a ready stable where you work?
I do have a ready stable where I work. I try not to cross-pollinate my home life with my work life in that way, though. So
Okay.
we can discuss that offline and who that is.
Maybe, okay,
Okay,
maybe you
fine.
could look at the list and let us know who's missing.
Okay.
Can
All
do.
right. All right. Oh, all right. Then the next thing is the dimensional regulations. Um, I looked at the MBTA communities and what the Affordable Housing Overlay Committee did last year. Brookline did not have any dimensional regulations in their feasibility analysis.
But they did say that the sweet spot was 5 to 7 stories about, I think it said 40 units, and that was for a third of an acre site, if
Yeah.
my notes are right.
Mm.
And did they say 50 units? What was the number of units they said?
It was around 50, yeah. 5 to 7 stories with limited parking and 40 to 50 units appear to be the configuration that's feasible for tax credit financing. But they were looking at, like I said, like a third of an acre, I think was the size of the site that they
Right.
were.
Which is probably not far off for Arlington for this. We have a few sites that are large, but most of them are, half an acre or between 10,000 and 20,000.
And so
So
we
you,
should show those sites to the affordable housing developers to help get an idea from them about what size would be feasible for them to reasonably think that they could do a light tech development on those sites.
so question, and excuse my ignorance. So this committee has been formed to find parcels and ultimately declare that this is an area where somebody could build something, right? But
No, not, we are doing that in order to inform the zoning, but the committee charge is really to develop a zoning proposal to recommend to the
right.
redevelopment board so they can consider recommending it to town meeting.
So if you take the St. Camillus field where they all walk the dog next to the church, I don't know if you familiar with it.
Sure.
So, if we identified that field as a spot of potential, and the church decides to sell that spot, I mean, if we say size and scope like this, and somebody wants to build a 5 or 6 story building on that with 50 or 60 units, that certainly wouldn't fit into that neighborhood. And I think you drive the neighbors crazy. And it certainly would overwhelm the school there. So are you then looking to section off different areas like Mass Ave, since Mass Ave is now tall and wide? Would you say that Mass Ave you could build a 5 story, but in the St. Camillus parking lot, the field, it can only be a 2 story to fit into the neighborhood? Are you thinking that detailed, or is that the redevelopment board that does that?
I think a lot of these locations, the height will depend on how large the site is.
Mm.
And that little area where they walk the dogs, that's a pretty small site, but if you combined it with some of their other land, it might not be. I don't think so much of our zoning decisions can't really be made based on whether a parcel development next to me might drive me crazy, unfortunately,
Mm.
because we're in such a housing crisis. And that's really what this zoning initiative is attempting to address, since it's been we've had so many policy decisions and the master plan and the housing production plan. And Brian, you probably saw on the presentation last week all of what led to this moment. We've been talking about trying to get an
Mm.
affordable housing overlay for a long time. And we know every time there's a new development that it's inevitable that it will be a big change for anyone who's already living there. But every time there's a new conventional multifamily market rate development, that means that there is less opportunity for someone to afford that rent
Oh,
who,
sure. Yeah,
so
sure.
it's,
Mhm.
and every time one of those goes up, we hear a lot of understandable frustration from residents about why does it have to be so expensive?
Right,
So
right.
this is one zoning path that we hope will create that kind of, finally, it looks like
Yeah,
someone could afford these.
yeah.
So it's, we understand what you're saying, but we can't, right now, we're still trying to expand the list of places to consider. So we're, I'll leave it at that. I think you get
Yeah,
it.
so our job basically is to find suitable locations that we think would, and not necessarily get into the weeds of how high and wide, right?
Right, because we're not
Well,
the developer,
yeah,
sure.
I
We
see.
just
Yeah,
want to make
which
sure
is,
we
I
create
think
the
that's important.
opportunity in the
Yeah,
zoning.
I think if you stay out of the weeds of trying to pick how high and wide, then
I mean,
you,
I think to some extent we do need to be thinking about how high and wide.
Yeah, we do have to get
Um,
dimensions.
Because that
so
the zone, because that's what zoning
because
does.
that's a lot of what the zoning is. I do also think that the reality is that sort of the status quo, to some extent, protects the investment of homeowners, but leaves a lot of people being unable to afford to live in town at all. I think it's true that, zoning that allows taller buildings in places that haven't previously allowed tall buildings can be disruptive, and it's not going to make everyone happy. But I do think we need to be willing to propose like a meaningful change that will create affordable housing, despite the fact that nothing we could propose is going to make everyone happy. And, it's going
mm,
to, no matter what we do, it's going to upset some people. I think we need to come up with something where we feel like the benefits of the change outweighs the disruption and the negative impacts of the change.
mhm. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
And knowing that affordable housing is hard enough to build as you know.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, believe me, Drake Village is an education for all of us. Uh,
right,
but
right.
I think the other thing that's important, and I don't know if it's our decision, but I know these allowing buildings to go up without parking is somewhat unrealistic, unless you're putting it on Mass Ave. But I don't know if that's probably not within our purview.
Well,
Really?
we could talk some about parking
Actually,
minimums,
it
but
is.
the developer could always build more parking than is legally required. Like
Mm,
if the developer thinks that more parking is necessary, they're going to build more parking. And so I think it's just how much do we think the zoning needs to specify the number of parking spaces and how much we should leave that up to the developer.
yeah, but I mean, if
We've
you think,
also we've
if
also
you,
looked at the parking utilization at the, Arlington the
Housing
housing
authority.
authority, I believe, and actually, and also the, housing corporation properties, which are be kind of the most directly analogous. And what they found is that the utilization is like one spot per unit, regardless of bedroom size, just because if you have an affordable
mm,
housing development, you're not going to have a family that can afford to have multiple vehicles. It's not the same as a market rate development in
yeah,
that way.
yeah, I think one for one is a good measure, but
So one
sorry, I
additional
don't mean to
step,
dominate all this stuff.
no, it's good to
You'd
get the
be,
questions to
you
get
know,
cut up.
but
They're helpful questions.
Right.
Another step we need is to try to get sites mapped and property owner contact and input. Uh, we have requested a price quote from Stantec for mapping, and we'll have to have several iterations of mapping, but we don't have the price quote yet. But I wanted to let everyone know that Sarah's still trying to get a price quote on that.
And on the properties, I think Carol's been working on sort of consolidating some of the sites to have a list of the properties that we will definitely be wanting to show to the ARB when we talk to them in December. There's now 28 sites. And, I think we'll need to look at every one with the ARB. So having the maps will be very helpful. Is there anything else, Carol, that we need to do on that
I think,
right now?
we should have an approach. I'd like to think about us kind of like almost like a standard approach on what we say to key property owners on the list, just to start to inform them of this initiative, to get their input and explain that it's an additional set of zoning options that they would have or a future owner would have if they were ever decided to dispose of the property. So that's something I would also seek any volunteers who are interested in doing that. And I can walk people through what the script is, or I could even, do conference calls, we could do a joint call together for anyone who would like to be involved in that, but not necessarily take the lead initially.
I'm sorry, I got distracted because Sarah texted me and said that she's not going to be able to join us tonight.
Okay.
What are you talking about doing?
Just initial outreach to the property owners on the list. A, for courtesy, B, for early information to let them know about it. Of course, all of the property owners would have to be notified before this goes to town meeting. That's just part of adopting zoning.
Right.
But we're not really there yet, but at least I think that's another step. Like if we're able to let the ARB know we're doing that, I think that also would help them understand that we're being very thorough and deliberate and diligent.
So Carol, do you need their permission to declare it an overlay?
No,
No.
no. I mean,
Right.
you always inform, but you don't need permission.
And then they have the option of like going to the ARB or going to town meeting and saying, hey, I think this is a good idea, or hey, I think this is a bad idea. They don't have any greater like legal right than anyone else in Arlington, but they do, the property owner is more likely to have an opinion, and the ARB or town meeting probably will take whatever they say seriously.
So what about the neighborhood? What about the abutters? Do you have to notify them too?
Yeah,
No,
I
not
think
for a
I think
zoning change.
So
yeah, I think for a zoning change, like immediate abutters or something get notified, right?
So I hate to use St. Camille as an example, only because I'm up here. So if you're going to declare that dog park, a zone, we wouldn't have to notify the abutters before this goes to town meeting?
I'm not sure
I
what
thought you did.
I think we would. I mean, as a property owner, I think we should,
Well, also, I mean, technically everyone in town gets the town meeting warrant and can read it if they want to, but a lot of people
I
don't
don't
read
read
it.
that stuff.
I thought abutters got notified for zoning map changes, but I'm not positive off the top of my head. That's something we can look up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, personally,
that's my understanding as well, David, but we should just verify with town council.
Yeah, we're a little bit at a disadvantage
You could
because
just look
we
at
don't have
Mass General
staff
Law
here.
40A. It's in state law. We can
Right.
just check 40A.
yeah.
I
I mean, I think it'd be good transparency and a good business practice to notify them.
There's no budget for this, let's bear in mind. And one of the stumbling blocks last year was that the very hardworking citizen initiative to try to adopt this type of zoning sought to model it after a successful similar zoning ordinance in the city of Cambridge, which applies citywide. So the ideal was to try to make it apply townwide in Arlington.
Interesting.
The practical challenge with that was that it would have cost tens of thousands of dollars that was not budgeted to inform every single property owner in the town. I don't know if the town has budgeted anything for that notification this year. I would think they would have, since it was a moderator's initiative, this particular committee. So to do any extra non-statutorily required a notification, I think would be very challenging to pay for.
Yeah, that's
And I
interesting.
don't think we've,
Uh,
if we have not done it in the past, I don't, here again, I don't think we should overburden the affordable initiative with more than we have done with past zoning initiatives. I don't think, Laura, you were on the MBTA advisory, the MBTA Community Zoning Advisory Committee. You may recall if if abutters to the district were notified, we can ask Sarah, she would know. So let's,
I just put the text from the zoning bylaw into the chat. For people who want it. It does include some a better notification language, but I don't know exactly how that's been calculated in the past.
Right, and we don't know who has to get notified from this. It doesn't say in the bylaw, David, who gets.
I mean, it does say include abutters, but
Yeah,
you know, and like
registered mail. Yeah. So it does say you
abutters,
gotta
abutters within
notify them.
300 feet.
Okay.
So
I mean, I suppose we can
um,
get to that point when we're there. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
you think
yeah.
you'll be there, yeah.
The A or B will
Yeah.
actually have.
Right.
like if the ARB
Responsibility.
adopts it, then they'll take
have to
care of
do
it
it.
according to
Yeah.
their standard practice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And
Um,
it's two, there's also two things. There's both the zoning, a bylaw amendment and a map change. So
right.
there will be notice requirements.
Well,
I just don't know what they are.
the map change is the one that like has a better like the zoning change by the zoning bylaw change by itself. Is it for any specific location? So a butters don't make sense except when
okay,
the
so
zoning
we'll
map
do
change.
whatever we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. That's fair enough to say. Um, we didn't really talk about too much about dimensional regulations too.
Well, what one thing I'm wondering is like, would it make sense to like sort of just draft like just like a starting point based on like the MBTAC that we could then adjust like height limits and so on based on talking to developers, but at least have a draft that we could sort of iterate on. And
Uh-huh.
I'm sort of noticing as like, how would people feel if I took it upon myself to just draft something that would, as a starting point, and then we could adjust things like parking requirements and height and so on based on these discussions? Would that be a useful thing for me to do?
We may want to
Makes
work
sense.
from the draft that the Citizen Initiative group started last year.
Yeah, well, why don't I start with that
So-
and the MBTAC as just the starting point, come up
Okay.
with something, and then we can iterate on it. Would that make sense?
Yeah,
Sure.
they're very
Provided you
similar,
can
actually, Carol.
identify what is what you're importing from the MBTA Communities Overlay District and what you're taking.
Yeah, I
from-
could use like highlight colors or something,
Okay,
just so that we can look at it.
They're quite similar.
and
I
then
look-
we
I
can
looked
take
at
that and get input from affordable housing developers on that, as well as these other aspects.
Okay, very good. Thank you, David. Can you do that for the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, and
I'll try to, get something to send out soon, and then obviously we won't deliberate on it except in a public meeting.
okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. That would be great. I'm writing that down.
Mhm.
I don't think we'll be able to get all of the outreach before the next meeting.
All of the outreach on the properties.
All of the outreach on the properties, the feasibility, and the
You know, I feel like we just need to show the list to the ARB before I don't know whether should notify people first or not, but I feel like we need to show to the ARB first, I think. Well,
I
we
mean,
need to
there's no
show to the
harm.
ARB soon.
Yeah, there's
I
no
mean, I
harm.
think-
Just
yeah,
identify
there's no
things.
harm in showing it to them and letting them know. and getting input.
I mean, it's already public, so your slideshow is already public. So
That doesn't, the slideshow doesn't have all the properties. It
Oh,
has
you-
some
you added
sample
more?
properties. Yeah, well, we
Um,
had this list before, but
yeah,
There wasn't a really
didn't-
good way to
I
show a
wasn't
list
ready
of
to put the
28
whole list.
properties in
Yeah.
a
Oh.
PowerPoint slide. So we
Okay.
gave a selection of the
Yeah.
28 just
Yeah.
to.
I
give
don't
it
see
a
any
look.
harm. You're not
Maybe
hiding
so.
anything, but
In what? There's no harm in,
no, I see
And-
no harm in
and
showing
sharing
it
it.
Are you
and
saying, Brian?
sharing it with the board that you're talking about.
Okay, all
I
right,
think it's a
good,
big deal.
okay. Dimensions and then share list with board, okay. All right, so schedule going forward. I believe, so the ARB is having 2 meetings to talk about warrant articles. I talked to Sarah about us getting on the second meeting, which is December 15th. looking at my calendar over there. I guess they're meeting the 1st and the 15th. The 1st is next Monday. We are not ready for the 1st. So I'm going to confirm with Sarah after this that we are on for the 15th, and I'm going to see if we can get more like an hour than the half hour we had. Well, the half hour we were scheduled for, but I don't even think we got a half hour at the last meeting. And it
Yeah,
really,
we're gonna need more time than they gave us last time.
do you think an hour is fair to request? Is that
Yeah.
enough? Yeah, I think it feels like it.
That should
I
be,
also, I know everyone is very busy, but I also think that we will have the most productive discussion with the ARB if we can get the materials substantially ahead of the meeting so that they can have a chance to review, digest,
Right.
have questions.
Right. So really, we need to have everything at the next meeting for this group to review it. The some kind of dimensional proposal and the list of properties. And
Yes.
some feedback from developers to the extent that we can get that.
so the list, the feedback, and what was the third thing?
Dimensional requirement.
Dimensional proposal, draft, everything is draft. I mean, I think anything we bring to the ARB is subject to change, so
Yeah, everything is a draft.
we should just have to put a,
Mhm.
what's the expression? Put a something in the ground, a stake in
Yep.
the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Um,
don't want to
I
be
don't think we
overly,
need it.
sorry, I was just gonna say, I would like to recommend that we have everything ready for the ARB ideally by the Wednesday before their meeting. So if we're on the 15th, the prior Wednesday,
Mhm.
that way we can have everything submitted. They can post everything with their agenda, which allows for public, for members of the public who want to review materials before the ARB meeting to also have the opportunity to do
So
that.
that's the 10th.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So is
Tentative
our next
meeting
meeting
that
on the
night.
8th?
Yes, it is, I
Okay,
believe.
so
Yes.
we bring as much as we can for the 8th, discuss it then, and be prepared to send it to the ARB basically immediately so they get it by the 10th.
Yeah, or the 11th at the latest, but I think Sarah's gonna have to, I think you have to post for Monday meetings by what, Thursday?
Yes.
So, I think that we should, I think I think we need to do that. And I think if we need to schedule another meeting, if we think the 8th is too late, then we should talk with Sarah about scheduling another meeting.
Okay. The weeks are coming fast.
I know, fast and
It's
furious.
before the 8th is next week, if we want to meet
Yeah,
next week. If we wanted to meet before the 8th, it would have next week.
next Monday might be too tight
Okay.
with the holiday, but
Well,
we could try for maybe next Wednesday if people don't have conflicts on that Wednesday. We can
Wednesday,
take the
December
scheduling, we
3rd.
can, yeah, we could take the scheduling discussion offline. That's not a public
Take that
meeting
at the end.
violation. Ugh. But I do think
Okay.
we need another meeting.
Well,
Sorry to be the
thanks for having-
taskmaster. I think that'll
Mhm.
be, that's what we need to have a really good conversation on the 15th.
Okay. Okay. So then, I was gonna say it says our next meeting is December 8th, but, do you think, Beth, are you thinking we would have 2 meetings between now and the ARB?
We might need to. I mean, I think if we,
I mean, I do think that would give us a better chance of having something, semi-polished to take to the ARB if we could try to like have some drafts of stuff for like December 3rd, talk about it then and maybe come up with changes that we want to make and then discuss it again on December 8th. Like that would give us an ability to have something we could stand behind.
Okay. I'll, discuss that with Carol.
thank you,
I
Madam.
mean,
Chair.
Carol and Sarah, is what I meant to say. Okay, so is there anything else from the board before we open it to public comments?
Do we want to discuss in terms any future public engagement? Like, for example, in the past, we've talked about sending out a survey. Is that something we want to
I've been
do?
working on some survey questions, that jumping off from where you and Maxwell started. I don't think it's really ready for prime time, but I think we can put that on our next agenda, possibly if there's time. The taking the approach of giving a little information about affordability or locations, and then asking preferences.
Great. Yeah, I just wasn't sure what the status is of that. I think if you've got some thoughts there, then we can discuss that at a future meeting.
Is what you're thinking, both of you, can that wait to go online until in January?
I think it could wait. I'm a little I'm not really big on these surveys that we do because they're not statistically significant and they're,
I mean, they certainly have flaws, but I do think it's good to provide an opportunity to get feedback from people other than people who can attend these public meetings, because not everyone can attend these public meetings.
they're
either.
valuable in terms of just getting information out on which we can ask some questions, because I think that if someone wants to just read something, they may not be as engaged with it as reading some information and then commenting or opining on it. So I'm not opposed to doing it, but I think that they're not, we're also not, we don't have survey design expertise necessarily. So I think they have a value that's more in community education than in actually community surveying. But I think it's definitely something that will help the cause. So I've been working on it.
I think it's fine to focus on the ARB stuff and do the survey when it's ready. I just wasn't sure what the status was.
Okay. I think it was like the other stuff felt more pressing, but I think we need to put that on an agenda.
And did you want me to go over the properties in this meeting? Do you think we're ready for that? If so, I have to plug in my charger.
It feels like a lot to do that right now at 7:30.
Yeah, I don't know. It is 7:30. Yeah. I guess we should hear from the public.
And then let's make sure that's on the list for the next agenda as well.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay. If people in the public would like to speak, if you could raise your hand, I will call on you. We have a 2-minute limit for public comments. Carl, you're on.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you for having me speak. I want to point out that the discussion is much more dynamic with the inclusion of Mr. Connor. And Mr. Connor and I didn't agree when we talked about some things in housing in the past. So I'm not saying he represents anything that I, as a member of the public, would say, but just the texture of discussion, the inclusion of ideas like parking should be in anything you do, talking about buildings that must fit or should fit into the neighborhoods they go into, and the notification of abutters. These are incredibly important things to the stakeholders of Arlington. And in the past meetings, what I've been trying to say as a member of the public to you that doesn't align with perhaps what Mr. Connor would specifically say, but is really helped by his presence here, and I hope you'll bring others, is that the stakeholders of Arlington are not just affordable housing developers and advocates for affordable housing. It's really important to get in voices like Mr. Connor's, and he lives here, so that's a separate stakeholder in addition to his role as the affordable housing authority. I want to say that this group needs to do more for Arlington as a whole to find out if a affordable housing overlay is appropriate, not to plan like the last year's private group did. That was a mistake, and it didn't include the public. You really need the public, but you need more of the stakeholders that represent the different parts of the public. Thank you very much.
I didn't pay him to say that.
Well, I think we all appreciate your perspective and contributions, Brian. It's definitely good to be, taking into account views that might be coming from a slightly different, place. And, people be coming from all sorts of different directions at town meeting. It's definitely good to be thinking about all these things earlier and not getting too not having any blinders on, etc.
Joanne Preston.
Oops. Hi. I'm also on the board of the Arlington Housing Authority, so you have two of us tonight. I have three concerns, and I'll try to be fast. The question about how affordable I should be depending, I think, more on need than on what developers might like, because I've talked with social workers and local charities and for the town. The people who come to them, greatest need is housing, no surprise, but they cannot afford the units at 80% AMI, which is 93%, $93,000 a year, right? Income. And just like Brian says, his daughter, who's a beginning teacher, and the social workers themselves. So to think about building affordable housing with very limited buildable space in Arlington at 100% affordability I think does not meet the needs of those who need it the most.
No, Joanne, and I just, 100% affordability means that all of the units need to be affordable. It does not say what the income level is.
But we're talking about income level also.
Yes, but that
I
was
think that's good to
50%.
think about as well. Yeah, we've thought about that less.
Yeah, so 80% doesn't work for all of these people who are going to social service agencies and the town with their housing problems.
Yeah, these would be 30%, 60%, and they can be up to 80%, but they have to average, if they're mixed affordability, all of them have to be subsidized affordable, and they have to average 60% affordable. They
I
wouldn't.
hope we're not using up my 2 minutes.
No, I'm going to
Sorry.
I'll
Go
give you
ahead.
a little more time. We'll give you a little more time since it doesn't look like there's too many more people waiting.
Okay. Low income tax credits means that the units are as affordable housing end at 30 years. So do you have plans on what's going to happen, not to the units? Are they going to be market rate? And more importantly, what are going to happen to the tenants? So that's another concern I have. I lived in Cambridge, where we have rent control actually kept so hundreds of these units stabilized. However, with the end of rent control, they had thousands of people who would automatically lost their home. And that's going to happen after this 30 years. So it's important to consider. Now, our Cambridge has a lot of money. They saved 150 units in one low income housing development with, I think it is $15 million. I mean, but they have a tax base that Arlington doesn't have. So think about what can be done to pay them, because people live there for 30 years and then they're out. All right, third, parking. I'm glad Brian brought this up, because we know in the housing authority that lower income people have a greater need for cars and parking. I was so surprised to find this out when I was on the board, but it's true, because they work at jobs that are in locations and at times that public transportation is not available. Like
Your
night-
time is just about up.
night cleaners. Did I just get cut off? So I think that it
Can-
should be at least part of the discussion, and not just say, well, if developers
can you
put
wrap
it
it up?
working, they can.
Thank you. Did that cover all your points?
Well, I don't know. I thought I had a little extra time because you people.
Well, I gave you 4 minutes. If you have another point, go ahead and make it.
And in light of, we want more discussion rather than less from other people. No, I just think that was a surprise to me about parking. But
Okay,
it's a great need at also elderly people, disabled people who tend to be more likely low income need cars. So those are my 3 points.
thank you.
I've had now 4 minutes.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak from the public? Um, Before we close the meeting, I think usually Sarah is able to save the chat
I
somehow.
just saved it. I don't know where.
You
I
did,
put it.
okay,
I think
thank
it's-
you, thank you. Because I think there were quite a few comments in the chat tonight. Okay, so I guess we're ready to adjourn. And the members will hear from probably Sarah about scheduling an extra meeting. But for the public, I would say just check the calendar.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Becca did.
All those in favor? Aye. Oh,
Aye.
sorry, David, second.